Well, hello and welcome back to another week's analysis behind the news. If I had my way, I think we're going to title this one Power of Media Manipulation, because that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. Anybody get a chance to see these headlines today? Or I should say a couple weeks ago? I see a few hands out there. This is from the Boston Globe. It says April 9th, 2016, or actually 2017, but this was presented as a Sunday edition of the Boston Globe a couple of weeks ago. And basically it has to do with what the headlines would be if Donald Trump becomes president of the United States. And here are some of the headlines. Great big one on the top says, "Deportations to begin. President Trump calls for tripling of ICE force. Riots continue. Curfews extended in multiple cities." Other examples here: markets sink as trade war looms. New libel law targets absolute scum in press. Well, maybe that's one we can hope for. And then, of course, Trump on Nobel Prize shortlist. Well, my question is, who isn't on the shortlist if they can give it to somebody as ineligible as President Barack Obama? And of course, their editor's note here, it says, "This is Donald Trump's America. What you read on this page is what might happen if the GOP frontrunner can put his ideas into practice, his words into action. Many Americans might find this vision appealing, but the Globe's editorial board finds it deeply troubling." Well, that's interesting, because I find it deeply troubling that a media company has gone to this extreme for this amount of hyperbole. Should they be focusing less on these statements and more on actual news? Another example is on Ted Cruz. Granted, this showed up in their opinion section, so keep that in mind. This isn't being passed off as news, okay? So I will give them that amount of due. The headline says, "Trump would be a disaster, but Cruz would be apocalyptic." And just real quick, the opening here. "Let's take a break from our national pastime trying to stop Donald Trump for a moment of clarity. Wanting Trump out of the Republican presidential race is not the same thing as proclaiming Ted Cruz an acceptable alternative. He manifestly is not. If a Trump presidency would be a disaster, a Cruz administration would be apocalyptic." Now, this is a type of hyperbole and extremism that you would think would be in like a gossip magazine down the center aisle of your at the receipts or at the registers of your local grocery store. But yet this is the Boston Globe. Now, in fairness to them, they did have critical articles as well as opinion pieces on Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton. Okay, but this is what they resort to as far as being, making news, trying to connect with their readers one-on-one. Yet, what the average reader may not understand is that these types of biases can carry over into the rest of their news-making abilities. For an example of this, let me offer you an article from the Washington Times of last November. Headline: "Republicans' media bias claims boosted by scarcity of right-leaning journalists." They start off, "A mere 7% of journalists identify as Republicans. And when journalists give money to political campaigns, they usually donate to Democrats, lending evidence to Republican presidential candidates' claims that they are facing a hostile audience when they deal with the press." A couple of paragraphs later, "And self-proclaimed Democratic journalists outnumber Republicans by 4 to 1, according to research by Lars Wilnett and David Weaver, professors of journalism at Indiana University. They found 28% of journalists call themselves Democrats, while just 7% call themselves Republicans." Does that mean the other so many percent lie? No, just kidding. Though both numbers, it says, are down from the 1970s. Those identifying as independent have grown, however. Now, if that's the case, then the news is being presented by people that think it's okay to have gun control, that government is there to help you, that climate change is something that we are responsible for, and that it's a responsibility of the federal government to fix. Let that sink in for a minute. Basically, whatever is politically correct at the time is being passed off as credible news. It's very dangerous. And if that's not bad enough, what about non-media entities that carry a whole bunch of power? Article in question here. Gizmodo from Friday published a piece with the headline, Facebook employees asked Mark Zuckerberg if they should try to stop a Donald Trump presidency. Now here's where their power lies. A ways into the article, it says, and Facebook has no legal responsibility to give an unfiltered view of what's happening on their network. Facebook can promote or block any material that it wants, UCLA law professor Eugene Volokh told Gizmodo. Facebook has the same First Amendment right as the New York Times. They can completely block Trump if they want. They can block him or promote him. But the New York Times isn't hosting pages like Donald Trump for President or Donald Trump for President 2016 the way Facebook is. Awfully important. Keep that in mind. But would Facebook actually try to do something like that? Well, let's dig into it a little bit. Most people don't see Facebook as a media company, which is an outlet designed to inform us. It doesn't look like a newspaper, doesn't look like a magazine, and it doesn't look like a news website. But if Facebook decides to tamper with its algorithm, which alters what we see, it's akin to an editor deciding what to run big on the front page or what to take a stand on. The difference is that readers of traditional media, including the web, can educate themselves about a company or about a media company's political leanings. Now, getting back to, would Facebook actually really do this, and have they maybe done this in the past? The fact is, they already have. A little bit further in the article. During the 2012 presidential election, Facebook secretly tampered with 1.9 million users' news feeds. The company also tampered with news feeds in 2010 during a 61 million person experiment to see how Facebook could impact the real-world voting behavior of millions of people. They claimed that Facebook increased voter turnout by more than 340,000 people. So folks, it's already happening. We have non-media entities that are changing the way that we think and the way that we vote. Now, next time, what we're going to do is we're going to focus on journalists that get it right. And we're going to focus on how we can counter all of this media manipulation. So until next time, we'll see you then.